Welcome to the Product Business Podcast. This is your number one podcast for the tips, actions, and insights to make more money from your products while enjoying your life. I'm your host, Amy Winslow. Let's dive right in. Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be sharing some really incredible news today. One of our past clients, Madeline Hayden from Nutpods, has landed her company in position number 13 on the Inc. 5000 list for fastest growing companies in the United States. Now, we worked with Madeline when she was growing past her kitchen table into her first production runs and then into her first distributor sales and her pricing and first grocery store chains, her Amazon launch. So I am thoroughly proud of her and the team for everything that they've done. You should really look for Nutpods dairy-free creamer in the refrigerated case of your grocery stores, as well as next to the almond milk, because it is shelf stable. Now, I am really inspired today to share about the stages in business that happen when you're growing a company this way and when you're growing it quickly, because this all happened in not a whole lot of time, right? So when you are growing a company that is going to end up on the Inc. 5000 list, and I forgot to mention that Nutpods is number 2 in the food and beverage category. So that's amazing. And they really have done a great job. So what happens when you grow a company quickly? Now, many people don't realize that if you're growing a service business, it's very different than if you're growing a product business. The stages of development are at different thresholds of numbers, right? Like to say that you're selling $1 million sounds like a really big number, right? Well, in a product business, $1 million in sales has similar problems start to show up as, say, a $300,000 a year service business. So if someone is experiencing growth, right, there's going to be cracks in the business foundation that appear, and it's important to pay attention to them. I was talking with Eric Flamholtz last fall, and Eric is a UCLA professor on organizational development. He's also the guy that Howard Schultz from Starbucks tapped to work with his executive team when they were only doing $165 million. And they decided they wanted to grow to $1 billion, right? So they were going to go from 165 million to $1 billion. So Eric worked with them over 4 years to develop the organization to withstand that kind of growth. So when we were talking about growth and growing businesses and the stages of development, there's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind. There's kind of the foundation, right? Which is your business concept. That's what business you're really in. In a product business, it's usually called meeting the demands of a consumer who has XYZ problem, right? Then you're going to have a strategic mission, which is the measurable statement of what the organization wants to become at the end of a planning period. Now, when we work with a client, say in the product success program with us, we plan for 12 to 18 months out. And so there's a strategic planning time frame, and we do all that planning in one day with our clients. So when you are doing planning, the strategic mission is linked to the amount of time, right? So who do you want to be at the end of a time period? Core strategy is another component, and that is the concept of how you're going to compete in whatever market that you want. Now, if you don't like the word compete, it's how you're going to get the attention of your chosen market and have a viable business in it. And then the economic model is how do you earn a profit, right? So how are you going to make money? And that's one of the big questions that investors ask. So in growing the business, that's just your foundation. there's actually 6 other levels to a hierarchy that you need to address. And actually, successful businesses compete on all of those levels, not just the product, not just the how they make money or the price, and not just, oh, we're going to go do our strategy really well for a year. No, they're actually competing on way more elements than just that. So some of the other things that come into play will be your corporate culture, your management systems, operational systems. I could go on. And the distinction of being one of the fastest growing companies means that you have handled the baseline in all these different areas. And it can sound a little overwhelming. That's the purpose of having someone alongside you who has done parts of this before, who's done what you want to do before, who can take a bigger view than you can see from where you are, right? And every business needs that, myself included. We have a mentor, an advisor that I'm meeting with on Monday. It's very, very important. We're spectacular at product businesses and at doing this work with a product business. It's very important, though, to not live in your own bubble. So when it comes to our business and our consulting that we do with clients and how we're building our consulting base, I'm always looking for what is the outside perspective. And so one of the big solutions here is don't think you have to have all the answers. One of the main things that an investor is going to look at is who's your team, who is advising you, how are you growing beyond yourself, right? How are you growing beyond yourself? That's a really, really important question. I would love to be the one to help you if you're a product business. We do this kind of work for and with clients all the time. It's part of our purpose in the world, and part of our strategic mission is to make sure that you are growing in the most dynamic, sound ways possible, and that you end up on things like the Inc. 5000 list, and that you win awards like our clients do. We had one year at the National Hardware Show. Out of 36 Retailers' Choice Awards, our clients won 3 of them, and we only had 5 clients at the show. So they do really, really well because the product is lined up in a way that it can be sold, that it's viable, that it makes sense, right? So that's what you really have to pay attention to. And remember, if you're used to being in a service business and you think that growing to $1 million sounds super complicated, that's really the equivalent of about $300,000 in a service business. So it's about a 1/3 ratio. Now, you want to know how Starbucks did, right? And this was back in, I think, 1995 that Eric was working with them to 1999. And that is the period where they grew to just under $1 billion in revenue, right? Magic Johnson became a franchise holder. They started doing franchise operations in multiple countries. It was explosive growth period. And the only way they could do it is by handling some of these details that I'm talking about. And I'm happy to do another episode for you about this if you'd like. But I just wanted to share with you what goes on behind the scenes when you're really up to something big and your company is growing. You are going to have cracks in these different 6 or 7 areas show up at different thresholds of revenue, okay? Because you're going to need more people, or you have a capital funding need, or your product needs a refresh after it's been out in the market for a certain amount of time, or units sold. And so you get to grow as a business owner, right? I know this has been a broad conversation this morning. It's been fast, but I think it's really important for you to understand that your growth happens in stages, right? The advisor that you would ideally want on your board may not come in until you're further into it, right? So you may have to have different advisors that grow with you along the path. Your advisory panel could change because of the direction of the company, or you need a core competency in something. You might be hiring different consultants at different points too, right? So you really are actively looking at what's next for your business, and you're planning from that place on what to do next, okay? The biggest pieces, once you have your product defined and launched, would be your planning system, the organization, and the operations. How are you running those things? Because those drive your results, okay? I'm really glad that we get to do this with you. I would love to serve you and the businesses that you work for and that you're creating, as well as any groups of business owners that you think I could really help. So I do a ton of public speaking. I'd be happy to come speak to your group. You can certainly reach us through the link in the podcast description, or go to our website, productstoprofits.com/speaking. And that will get us connected for me to do that for you. If you would like to have a sound business strategy and an operational plan and a path forward for your business for the next 12 to 18 months, we are available to do that with you and for you. So please contact the office at 626-396-0990. Again, 626-396-0990. And this is for companies that are really up to moving with grace and ease, that have a product or the prototypes of their product and are moving it forward actively. Okay? Because we move you forward. All right. With that, everyone, I will be back with our next episode tomorrow. You have just listened to the Product Business Podcast with me, your host, Amy Wenslow. Subscribe, review, and share our podcast on Apple iTunes, Podcasts, or Google Play. Until next time.